About the US media coverage of that first American Ebola case. Tell us more.
That's right. Well, as you'd expect in some of the tabloid media in the US, there is a lot of I suppose, dramatization of this case. You can see in the New York Daily News, "A plague like no other," says the headline. Americans panic over the first US diagnosed Ebola patient. And you can see a photo there as well, very much indicating how there's a risk of contagion with this, as with any virus. Also on social media, similar sort of tone, I suppose, the fear of contagion, or I suppose that the virus being propagated, being discussed. "I'm so scared of this Ebola stuff. Oh my God," says one Twitter user. On the USA Today website, "Ebola outbreak, 5 things you need to know now, Tom." And there's a whole list there of graphics that you can go through, Ebola symptoms, etc., as if this one case was suddenly risking to turn into an absolute outbreak across the United States of America. Now, if you're a listener of National Public Radio, it's a completely different tone. Don't panic, they're saying. So if you're listening to National Public Radio, Tom, and also reading the New York Daily News, you risk being a little bit confused as to what the real risks are. Now, here you have, for example, I think it's the Dr. Edward Goodman. He's an epidemiologist at the Texas Health Presbyterian Hospital in Dallas, where that first case was located. And his message, as is the message of several other people, is don't panic. Indeed, there was an NPR journalist, Richard Harris, this morning pointing out that there's only one known case of a man who flew from, where an actively ill patient was identified on a flight that was between Liberia and Nigeria. He was extremely sick. No one else on that flight contracted the illness, so perhaps not a reason for people to panic. Also, people, I suppose, messages from the Centre of Disease Control saying, look, we know how to stop it. Thorough case finding, isolating sick people and contact tracing, so trying to temper those fears. A similar message, Tom, from the White House on their Twitter page. Ebola cannot be spread through air, water or food, and get the facts on Ebola. So I suppose you've got the dramatisation and also, I suppose, some more responsible voices trying to temper those temptations to panic.
Those calls for calm seem to be consistent with what medical professionals that we've spoken to on France 24 have been saying as well, namely very unlikely that anyone who travelled on those planes would have been infected. What does the European media have to say about that spreading Ebola virus? Because, of course, it is spreading in West Africa.
Yes. Just a quick look at some of how that is being covered. You have a graphic here on the Agence France Presse, or the AFP Twitter feed there. And, of course, that does indicate that this is the first time that the virus has left Africa. And elsewhere, you've got in the French news weekly, Le Nouvel Observateur, their website has been asking experts, look, you know, we've seen it now in the United States, what about the risks here in France? And I suppose similar to the reactions we've been getting from specialists today on air, it can't be ruled out. I mean, you've got flights between West Africa and Europe, it can't be ruled out, but the risks are limited. Some degree of discussion as well, this is on the France TV, or the French public television website, about the risk of Ebola spreading during the pilgrimage to Mecca, indeed, with such massive movements of populations from some countries that have been affected, such as Nigeria. That is a concern. But if you look at slate.com, the spread of Ebola appears to have been stopped in Nigeria. So again, I suppose there are concerns, especially where movements of populations are quite numerous, such as for the Mecca pilgrimage, but other websites saying that those concerns don't really have any basis, Tom.
Okay, well, let's move on to another story you picked out for us. In the world of French politics, everyone knows Marine Le Pen. She is the leader of the far-right Front National, and there's a bit of a spat going on between her and her father. What's this about?
That's right. Now, since he made remarks earlier this summer which were seen as anti-Semitic, he has been seen as increasingly an embarrassment to Marine Le Pen, who is trying to make the National Front Party respectable and more respectable to a broader spectrum of voters. This after a very huge victory in European and local elections earlier on this year. So there is, I suppose, an attempt to sideline the embarrassing figure of Jean-Marie Le Pen, who has made quite a lot of, I suppose, openly racist comments in the past, Tom. And now it seems that might be a bid by Marine Le Pen to remove him from the role of Honorary President of the National Front Party. Now, this is information that was brought out by the Canard Enchaîné weekly newspaper. It's not yet confirmed, but a lot of headlines pointing that out. Now, on a slightly less serious note, although I suppose it is serious for the animals concerned, it appears in a house owned by the Le Pen family, Jean-Marie Le Pen's Doberman appears to have eaten Marine Le Pen's cat. Bengalese cat. So it's a rather extraordinary headline.
Maybe that's how this whole spat started. Maybe that's the reason.
Domestic issues can often lead to, I suppose, things blowing out of proportion elsewhere. And so lots of funny headlines about the Doberman. Well, is it funny? I suppose animal rights activists will tell us it isn't funny at all. And it appears that this coincides with the news that Marine Le Pen is moving out of that family residence in the western suburbs of Paris, Tom.
It's time for her to go and live on her own and show she's an independent woman.
Indeed.
Well, I won't be asking Jean-Marie Le Pen to cat sit for me,
Right.
that's for sure.
Better not. Better not.
Thank you very much indeed. James Cruden, that was MediaWatch. Well, it is time now for Focus here on France 24. Today